Why ethics? I mean, why would we want to live an ethical life? Why would we link our Zen practice, our Zazen, to ethics? So I want to talk around that a little bit, but without losing the specific context, because this is the beginning of our study of the Zenkai. In whatever it is, 8 to 9 months' time, some of us will be taking Jukai, the transmission of the Zenkai. And of course, I want to emphasize that this is actually a life practice. Whether or not we mark it at any point by an affirmation, it's still a life practice. And if the Zenkai, if ethics within our tradition is something of a koan, it's a koan to which our whole life is the answer going forwards. An answer lived out that links the practice of our Zazen with our understanding, in whatever form that takes, of the ideas, the principles around that, and our life as it is, as Joko has called it. Our life as we experience it in this moment and this moment and this moment, bringing together those three in the life we live out. This is clearly a very different starting point from, say, if I were Christian or Muslim. And to highlight the differences isn't to pass judgment in any sense, but they're worth noting. I mean, basically, if I'm a follower, a believer in any of the religions of the book, the answer to why ethics, why would I want to live an ethical life, twofold, but absolutely straightforward. It's the will of God. Why wouldn't you? It's part of the praising of God, part of the affirmation of the glory of God. Definitionally, it's right. It's true. This is what I should do. No question. Totally straightforward. Of course, it's embodied in this book, the Bible, the Quran. And of course, it's not slightly as simple as that, because you'd think if you had a book that spelled it all out for you, quite literally, that would be the end of the matter and it would be straightforward. And yet, what if I'm gay? Does my faith support me? Does it affirm my relationships? Or does it tell me that I'm damned? If my country decides to go to war, will it reassure me that this is a just war, or that all war, definitionally, is wrong? And of course, within Christianity in particular, we're very, very well aware that, we can argue either way. No, the book doesn't have all the answers. We still have to make sense of it as part of our lives. So the will of God, but which? What? Of course, the other aspect of this is, particularly within the Christian tradition as it evolved, there's the question of, the other reason why I would live an ethical life is, if I do, I go to heaven, eternal life. And if I don't, I face eternal damnation, hell. That ought to be a pretty big carrot. And a stick, obviously. Yeah. And actually that links up with more, try and find the right word for this, less dominant, earlier forms of religions. many of which are either based around or which have an element of propitiation. That is to say, you do this for the god or the spirit or whatever, and this particular bad thing, or bad things in general, will not happen to you. That might be as an individual, it's quite probably as your community. The harvest will be good. The sun will come back after the winter. Very basic things, but it might be for me personally, obviously. Sacrifice and ritual are both very important part of that. It is important to do the right thing in the right way, whether that's tend the sacred fire or observe the particular days of the year or hours of the day. Observation and ritual are absolutely essential to making the good things happen and making the bad things not happen. And that's a hugely widespread human response, and these days we tend to call that kind of thing magic. And it's still with us, that kind of sense. I remember as a child, don't step on the cracks in the pavement. Kept this up for years. Still with us, absolutely. And it's in that sense that we have to see the really radical aspect of the Buddha's teaching in its original context. I mean, say you're a Buddhist to someone and say, oh yeah, well, you believe in rebirth, don't you? And, well, if you believe in rebirth, then you have to think certain things about how do the ethics apply. In actual fact, it's kind of back to front. The Buddha's basic argument is about ethics. And it's about, no, it's not about ritual. No, it's not about sacrifice. No, it's not about obeying something which is written down in a book. It's about working out in whatever form how to act in a way that doesn't harm other beings and that doesn't harm yourself, that works towards the end of suffering rather than the perpetuation of suffering. The whole rebirth thing is just, when people empirically observe, well, I did good things and bad things happened to me. How does that work then, Shakyamuni? Mr. Gautama. And of course, in that sense, well, it all comes out in the wash. Eventually, infinite lifetimes time, it'll all balance out perfectly. And that's where, that's the function of rebirth within the system. But the important point is not that. The important point is that this is the first time, and okay, other people are thinking this too, in the Greek philosophical tradition, Socrates, Lao Tzu in China, Confucius too, are saying what happens to you ethically is directly related to what you do. It's not, to the quality of your actions, the quality of your life, rather than following the ritual, making the sacrifices, whatever. It's a very radical idea. But how does that actually affect things if we're not looking upon it as just a kind of, oh, well, I'm doing this to get a better rebirth next time, or I'm doing this so I can step off the wheel of life altogether? What's in it for us? And of course, this is where the whole idea of, are we separate? Are we not separate? Comes to the fore. What's the meaning of ethical action within a world in which we see ourselves as not separate? Even if only in theory. But of course we feel, and this feeling affect is always more important than just thinking. What about the beings which we feel not separate from? Whether those are friends, partners, children, parents, my pet, my houseplant, whatever. My intimate relationships with other beings. The beings which I can clearly see. No, at some level or other, not separate. I can feel that. I think more generally, we could say that all of these systems, all of these ways of thinking, are about a kind of, we could say, place, having a place in the world, finding a place in the world that makes sense, that seem to offer some sense of coherence to our experience of the world, and our experience of ourselves for that matter. Offer us meaning. And that they make us feel, I suppose, possible about the world. Obviously, with heaven and hell, you've got both the carrot and the stick. This is somewhat different. And this might be a feeling of okayness, and it might be a feeling of well-being, and it might, in due course, lead to more of an experience of non-separation with a wider range of beings, or even potentially all beings in some different level. Might make us feel good about ourselves and our place in the world and living our life in the world. But seeing as one of the principal things which all of us want all the time, and in a sense it's our perpetual insecurity about this which drives us to do anything, is safety. If the world is coherent, if the world is understandable, if the world is meaningful, it feels safe. Just being feels safe, doing feels safe. Entering into relationship at whatever level feels safe. And if it doesn't, all of that becomes problematic. So to say the world makes sense from this point of view, we understand causality in this way. I see in my experience of the world and the way that other beings respond to me, I see that this offers a kind of safety, makes a certain kind of sense. And that lets me feel good about it. This actually seems to me really important. It offers us, well, let's use a very traditional Buddhist term, it offers us refuge. But not refuge from the world, not a safe place outside the world of my experience, the world of every day. It offers me refuge within the world. And in a sense, that's one of the major aspects of my practice. And of course, in terms of our thinking, but very intimate, embodied emotional thinking, the kind of things in which we feel when we're 3 or 5, and then senses which develop as we go on. Fairness, it's not fair. And it's kind of grown-up form of justice, whatever we think we might mean by that. These are notions which we can bring and relate. How do they relate to this practice? This ethical practice of the Zenkai. As I say, if we're basing everything on the book, and no disrespect to either the Bible or the Quran, or any other sacred text for that matter, it's either or. Either we follow the rules, or we don't. In that sense, either we're good, or we're bad. But of course, we mentioned sexuality, we mentioned warfare. If we're looking for placing ourselves definitively on the good side, and then there's a bad side, we get into conflicts when we find, hang on, I want to be on that side, but actually I find in this context, I'm on that side, or you're on that side, and that doesn't make sense to me. And, this is reality throwing up contradiction. We can't, it's not that simple. We can't just live in that way. And of course, every faith, every ethical system tries to resolve those conflicts in different ways. And I think our argument would be that the more you codify those, the more potential conflicts and thinking and dishonesty and denial you get into. But that's, that's our framework. They approach things rather differently. But in our terms, something we can't get away from is a paradox. And again, maybe this is another great aspect of Zen Buddhist koan. See, our Zenkai are the ethics of the Bodhisattva Shila. And the Bodhisattva is the awakening being. The being whose aim is not to depart for a better place, but to stay, to act within, to participate in the life of the world. Nowhere to go. I mean, we say nowhere to go. The Bodhisattva ethics are the affirmation that there is nowhere to go in that sense. We practice within this world, and we practice for all beings, because the Bodhisattvas, seeing emptiness, understand that they are not separate from all beings. And this is where our ideas of emptiness and the emptiness of emptiness begin to play. And in a sense, I don't want to try and explain that so we understand it, which I can't and we won't. But maybe we just take that as an offering, that paradoxically it's seeing the emptiness of all things in the world, including the emptiness of themselves in this sense, and the emptiness of that emptiness which sets the bodhisattvas, the enlightenment beings, the awakening beings, which is us, absolutely, on the path of compassion. Hang on, if it's all empty, where does compassion come from? Well, that's why I like to say not separate, because as soon as we understand things, as soon as we experience things, begin to experience things as not separate, then of course we care. Of course we have compassion, if we want to call it that. Karuna. Compassion. Care. Caring for. Caring about. Caring with. These different modes of care. And what's the basis of that? The emptiness of emptiness. Paradox. Yeah, but that's something through, study the works of Nagarjuna, but much more so in terms of the Zenkai. Our embodied, our lived out experience of non-separation. That's the koan which we're working to resolve through our lives. Can we hold on to that as a possibility? Understanding, not understanding. But as I said, the principle of the Bodhisattva is life in the world. Complicit with the world, compromised by the world. Absolutely, down and dirty with the world. But paradoxically, it's only that complicity which is actually our involvement with the world, which gives us any sense of agency in the world, because we're part of it, because we're involved, because we're engaged, because we care. So our aspiration and our intention, they're part of the world. They act within the world. They're not separate from the world. We're not trying to go somewhere else. We're not trying to be something else. We're not even trying to be special in any special sense. We have this aspiration, if we choose to affirm it. We have this, however we conceive it, not as absolute will or absolute freedom, but we have, in whatever sense we experience it, our agency within the world. Because things matter to us. Because things matter to each other. Because we can care for ourselves. Because we can care for and with and about others. And it's really this which is the heart of the Zenkai. Nowhere else to go, not separate, embodied, so we care for and with and about all beings. But those beings who present themselves to us. And of course, not forgetting this being. As my teacher Barry Magid has always said, it's easy to think that this is about saving all beings minus one, minus me. No. I'm a sentient being. My practice begins with me, extends to the world. Enough. We can talk about this. There will be more to say. But for now, let's sit.